Hey everyone, Tom Caffarella here with Ocean City Development. Today we're going to be talking about how to fix and flip a house with no money down. No money, no nothing. And one of the most common things that I hear newer or want to be real estate investors say is that they can't do a deal, they can't become real estate investors because they have no money. And it's just an excuse. All right, there are many ways to do it. It is very simple. You never need to have a dollar to become a real estate investor, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how you do it with no money. And how do I know this? I know this because when I started out, I had less than $5,000 in my bank account. And now, don't get me wrong, I'm not one of these people that's going to sit here and tell you that I was living out of my car and I was struggling and I couldn't do anything, but I will say that I didn't start with any resources, okay? And so now we do over 100 fix and flips per year in the greater Boston area, starting with none of my own capital. And so I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do that in this presentation, and it is in no way an excuse to not become a real estate investor. So let's jump into the presentation here. So the first thing that you can do, let me back up for a second before I even get into the steps and the options and things like that. The most important thing in the real estate investing business is learning how to market for and find motivated sellers. So that's the skill that you want to get great at. And if you can get great at learning how to market for and finding motivated sellers, you will make a ton of money in this business. Because at the end of the day, the money will find you if you have great deals. If you don't have great deals and you have money, that can actually impede you. Because if you have a lot of money that will allow you to buy anything that comes across your plate, and you don't learn how to become a great marketer and a great salesperson, you're going to end up buying deals that don't make sense to buy. You're going to overpay, and you're either going to make no money or you're possibly going to lose some of your capital reserves. So let's talk about the strategies that you can implement in order to get deals done, in order to become a real estate investor with none of your own money. And so the first way to do this, the first strategy, is to partner with another investor. And so this is actually the strategy that I implemented on day one, okay? My partner as of today had the cash when we first started, and he funded a lot of the deals. And so I had no money on day one. And the reality is that there are many more investors out there with money and no good deals than deals and no money. And that bears repeating, that most investors that have money are sitting on the sidelines right now because they can't find great deals. So if you can become the solution provider that is able to provide the deals, the money will come. All right, so the positives of teaming up with somebody with capital are that there are always more people out there with money and no deals than deals and no money. And it's because of this, it's fairly easy to find a partner who you can work with that has capital. The negatives of doing this. So there are negatives. There's pluses and minuses to every strategy. Every sort of strategy there is to do deals with no money. And the negative of the partnership strategy is that it can become an issue with any partnership if everything isn't spelled out completely on day one. And so it's really critical that if you are going to partner, that you need to have everything, the obligations of both parties and the rules for both parties together before you get into a deal. What you don't want to do is get into a deal with somebody that you don't know very well, you don't have the groundwork laid out, and then all of a sudden, people, there starts to be fights and there starts to be battles because of the fact that things were not laid out. All right. Second strategy, one that we've implemented big time in the greater Boston market, is to raise private capital. Okay. And so over the course of the last 5 years, I've raised over $10 million of private capital in order to fund our deals. And this is another key way that I've bought so many houses, because my partner did have a little bit of a nest egg to get started, right? But to do over 100 houses per year, you need some serious capital behind you. And so what I did, I should say, because I'm the one who raises the capital within the business, is go out and shake a lot of hands, introduce our company to a lot of people in order to fund our deals. So once you get to become known, the real estate investor in your market, the go-to person, the person who has all the deals, once people start to see that and they start to see your success, you're going to be able to raise private capital very easily from people that want passive income, that don't want to manage projects. Now keep in mind, there's a lot of investors out there that have capital that are thinking about getting into real estate, but they don't want to manage a construction team. They don't have the time to market for deals. And those people, it makes perfect sense to team up with those people and for them to lend directly to you so that they can make money on real estate investing without actually doing the things that they can't do or they don't want to do. So raising capital, I mean, it's a similar structure to partnering with someone, except that they're just providing the funding and you're doing everything else. Okay? So another partnership relationship could be laid out in any possible way. There could be any segregation of duties. When you're raising private capital, the relationship is very simple. The person's lending to you to fund your deals. You're paying them a good rate of return, and both parties are happy. And so related to the rate of return has to be both high enough to get them to want to lend to you, but low enough so that you can make money. So there does have to be a happy medium there. And what I typically recommend is lending at anywhere from 8 to 15%. Okay? If you try to raise private capital at under 8%, you're not going to get many interested parties. And if you're paying over 15%, you're not going to make any money. So the positives of raising private capital is that the relationship is very defined, right? It's defined right out of the gate, and it's a win-win for both parties. The negatives of raising private capital is that it is not something that's very easy to do on day one. So on day one, until you have a track record, only your closest friends and family are going to be the ones that would be interested in lending to you. Now, as time goes on and you get a great track record, the money's going to come to you. The third strategy to do deals, to do fix and flip deals with no out-of-pocket money, is to find a hard money lender that will lend at 0% down. And so finding a hard money lender that allows you to put no money down can be challenging but not impossible. So in my market, there's 2 or 3 people that will do it, and they have very clearly defined terms. The positives of finding a hard money lender that will lend at 0% down is that you're not putting up any of your own capital. And again, if you jumped on this video, that is probably the reason that's what you're looking for, right? Which is a huge positive, by the way. The negatives is that a hard money lender that is going to allow you to put none of your own money down is typically going to be super, super expensive. And so the ones that are in my market in general are charging a minimum of 50% of the profits. Okay? So if you're making $30,000 on a fix and flip, half of that is going to the hard money lender. And so in a lot of cases, you're really doing all the heavy lifting. You found the deal, you manage the project, and you're getting 50% or less of the profits. Having said this, if you have no other alternatives, and this is the only way you can get a deal done, then you do it. All right, so the other negative of a zero down lender in general is that they tend to be pretty conservative since all of their money is at risk. So they're really going to analyze that deal. And if you bring them a bad deal, there's no way they're going to fund it. So they're going to want equity in that deal on day one, meaning that you're going to have to bring them something that's pretty discounted right out of the gate. Seller financing. So seller financing is the last option that we're going to talk about today. And seller financing is essentially getting the seller, the person who you're buying the property from, to take a note back on the property, right? And it's a really great way to leverage your own capital and in a lot of cases put no money into the deal. So when we're meeting with a motivated seller one-on-one, we're always seeing if this is a possibility. We're always asking because we're always trying to raise money. And so part of us raising money is to ask the seller to see if they'd be interested in lending to us. All right, so we pitch it on every property that we buy just as part of the process. And a good percentage of those sellers that end up taking a note back on their project end up lending to us long term. So initially we'll go out, we'll talk to the seller, we'll get their property under contract, we'll say something to them like, hey, would you be interested in taking a note back on this project for 12%? And if they say yes, we get the note back and we have no out-of-pocket costs. And then typically after that project is done, they end up becoming a longer term investor with us. Okay? So the positives of this strategy, it's really very similar to just raising private capital. The only difference is that you're just pitching the seller of the house that you're buying. Okay, that's really the only difference. And the negatives of this strategy. So in a hot seller's market, it can be somewhat difficult, sometimes extremely difficult, to get a seller to agree to take a note back on their property. Because for most sellers, I mean, in general, they're not super interested in doing this, right? Because if they can get all of their money up front, if you're buying their property for $300,000 as an example, and the next buyer comes across and they can pay $300,000 and they don't have to take a note back for that other buyer, they're more likely to get all of their money up front. Now, it's a seller by seller decision, and so some sellers love the idea of taking out a note while others don't. All right, so just to wrap up, guys, there's so many tips and tricks. I mean, we talked about basically, ways to get deals done. I mean, there's other strategies as well, but the bottom line is that the first step to becoming a real estate investor is to learn how to get really good at marketing for motivated sellers. And the more seller living rooms you can get into to make offers on, the better you're going to get at this business. And as time goes on, and you do more and more deals, more and more money is going to come your way, both in the form of profits and in people that want to lend to you. So the first step of becoming a real estate investor is not to raise capital, right? The first step is to get really good at finding great deals, locking those deals up, and then either wholesaling or partnering with somebody or getting a zero down hard money lender. There's a million different strategies. Do not let no money prevent you from getting into this business. If I did that, I wouldn't be doing any deals. So thank you for watching. I'll talk to you later.